The house felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by silence. Since Margaret's passing 6 months ago, the once lively home had become a museum of memories. Dust settled on the photo frames that lined the mantelpiece, and Arthur had stopped playing the old radio that used to hum softly in the background as they had breakfast. Now he ate his meals alone, in silence, staring at the empty chair across from him. On that particular morning, Arthur's hands trembled as he held a cup of tea. It had been a restless night again. He found himself talking to her pillow, whispering little updates about the day before, as if she were still there, listening. But the bed was cold, and the only reply was the creak of the old ceiling fan. After finishing his tea, he walked to their bedroom. The door creaked, and the faint scent of lavender soap still lingered there. Margaret's side of the wardrobe remained untouched, as if she would return any day to scold him for not folding his shirts properly. Arthur's heart ached as he stared at her dresses. They hung there neatly, silently mocking the emptiness of the room. Something inside him urged him to open the top shelf of the wardrobe. He hadn't looked there in years. Slowly, he pulled out a small wooden box with delicate carvings Margaret adored. Inside lay a stack of letters, some photographs, and a leather-bound book, its edges worn and slightly yellowed. Arthur froze. It was her diary. His throat tightened as he sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of the diary heavy in his hands. He wasn't sure if he had the right to read it. These were Margaret's private thoughts, her secret conversations with herself. But a strange yearning washed over him, stronger than his hesitation. He needed to feel her presence again, to hear her voice in any way possible. Taking a deep, shaky breath, Arthur opened the diary. The first page was dated July 12, 1983. Margaret's handwriting was beautiful, neat, flowing cursive that curved like the delicate petals she loved to press between book pages. Today I met him. Ha ha ha, James Whitmore. Arthur's lips curved into a bittersweet smile. He could almost hear her giggle, that shy laugh she had the first time they locked eyes across the counter of the small bookshop where she worked. The diary described their first conversation. How Arthur had awkwardly asked for a poetry book he didn't even plan on reading, just to keep talking to her. With every page, he was transported back in time. He could smell the rain the night of their first date. He could feel the nervous energy of holding her hand under the table for the first time. Margaret had captured it all. How she secretly hoped he would kiss her goodnight. How her heart raced when he finally did. Arthur's fingers traced the ink as tears filled his eyes. He had forgotten some of these small details. Reading her words was like reliving their young love all over again. The entries moved from dating to their wedding day. I have never seen Arthur look so handsome. He cried during the vows, though he tried to hide it. I thought my heart would burst with happiness. Today, we became one. Arthur chuckled through his tears. He remembered the day vividly. His hands had shaken so badly he nearly dropped the ring. He had been terrified, not of marrying Margaret, but of somehow not being enough for her. He turned to the next chapter in their lives. The day they found out Margaret was pregnant. Her words danced with excitement and fear. Arthur spun me around the kitchen and kissed me like a fool. I've never seen him so happy. I think he's going to be a wonderful father. Arthur set the diary down for a moment and rubbed his eyes. The memories came flooding back. The sleepless nights when Lily was born, Margaret singing lullabies softly in the dark, the smell of warm milk, the sound of their baby's laughter echoing through the house. But as he read further, the tone of the diary shifted subtly. Margaret started writing about how much she missed Arthur when he worked late. I waited for him tonight. I made tea, kept the light on, but he didn't come home until after midnight. I know he works hard for us, but sometimes I wish he would just sit with me and talk. Arthur's chest tightened. He had worked long hours to give his family a comfortable life, but he never realized Margaret had felt lonely. She had never complained, never made him feel guilty. She just poured her heart into these pages. Another entry caught his attention. Arthur is my safe place. Even when I am sad or frustrated, just hearing him hum in the kitchen makes me feel better. I wish I could tell him that more often. Arthur's tears finally spilled freely. He whispered into the empty room, I wish you had told me, Maggie. I would have come home earlier. I would have come home earlier. I would have stayed awake longer. I would have done anything. But the entry that broke him completely was the very last one, written just weeks before she passed away. If Arthur is reading this, it means I am gone. My love, please do not be lone. You were my best friend, my greatest adventure, my heart. Promise me you will still sit in the garden and watch the stars. I will be there, always, and when you laugh, laugh for me too. Arthur clutched the diary to his chest as his body shook with sobs. It was the first time he had cried since the funeral. He had tried to be strong, to put on a brave face for Lily, for the neighbors, even for himself. But now, with Margaret's words pressed against his heart, he allowed himself to grieve. The tears flowed until he could hardly breathe. But strangely, there was comfort in it. Margaret's words didn't just reopen the wound, they stitched it in a way he hadn't thought possible. For the first time in months, he didn't feel completely alone. When he finally calmed, the room felt warmer somehow, as if Margaret herself had been there, holding him, whispering that everything would be all right. He looked out the window at the twilight sky, and the first star of the evening twinkled above. Arthur smiled faintly. "They see you, Maggie," he whispered. "I hear you." And for the first time since she had gone, Arthur stayed by the window until the stars filled the sky, holding the diary like it was a piece of her soul, because, in truth, it was. The following morning, Arthur awoke to a soft glow of sunlight streaming through the curtains. For the first time in months, he didn't feel the crushing weight on his chest when he opened his eyes. The diary lay on the nightstand, and seeing it there gave him a strange sense of purpose. He poured himself a cup of tea, then returned to the armchair by the window, Margaret's favorite spot, and opened to the next page. Margaret had written about small, ordinary moments. The way Lily loved to play in puddles after the rain. How Arthur always burned toast, but pretended he liked it that way. How she secretly saved the silly love notes he left on the fridge when he was running late. Arthur found himself laughing softly as he read. Each entry felt like a conversation with her, a reminder that their life hadn't just been marked by milestones, but by thousands of tiny moments that stitched their love together. That afternoon, Lily came to visit. She found her father sitting in the garden with the diary on his lap. At first, she worried. "Dad, are you all right? You've been so quiet lately." Arthur smiled gently and patted the chair beside him. "Sit down, love. I want to show you something." He handed her the diary, opened to a page where Margaret had written about the day Lily took her first steps. Lily's eyes widened as she read aloud. Arthur held Lily's hands and let go for just a second. She toddled 3 steps before falling, and we both cheered like fools. "I think our neighbors must have thought we'd lost our minds." Lily laughed, wiping away a tear. "You seem different, Dad. Happier." Arthur smiled. "I think your mother taught me how to keep living. She left me a map, and I'm finally following it. Months passed and the seasons turned. The garden bloomed. The house no longer felt unbearably quiet, and Arthur even started inviting neighbors over for tea. He would sometimes read them passages from the diary, the funny ones, the ones that made everyone laugh. One evening, as Lily was leaving, she handed the diary back to him. "You should write in it, Dad," she suggested. Arthur hesitated. "Write? In Maggie's diary? Oh, why not?" Lily said softly. "She left a story for you. Maybe it's time you add your own, so one day I can read it too." That night, Arthur opened to the last page and picked up a pen. His hand trembled, but he began to write, "My dearest Maggie, today I planted more roses. Lily laughed when I got soil on my nose. I miss you every day, but I am learning to laugh again, just like you asked me to. Thank you for loving me so well. Thank you for teaching me how to live, even now. Until we meet again, my love." When he finished, he closed the diary gently and placed it back on the nightstand. He felt at peace. As he turned off the lamp and looked out at the starry sky, Arthur whispered, "Good night, Maggie," and somewhere deep in his heart, he felt her whisper back. Winter settled gently over the town, coating the rooftops with snow and filling the air with that crisp, quiet stillness Arthur had come to love. The house no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like a place where memories breathed alongside. The diary lay on the coffee table now, no longer tucked away, always ready to be opened. It had become his most precious companion. Arthur had continued writing in it every few days. His first entries had been short, hesitant, little notes about his garden, about what Lily had cooked when she visited. But soon his words grew longer. It was as if Margaret's presence encouraged him to share more, to keep speaking to her. He wrote about his fears, his regrets, and his hopes for Lily's future. One cold January morning, Arthur woke before dawn, unable to sleep. He brewed tea and sat by the window, pen in hand. Maggie, he wrote, today marks 1 year since you left. I thought this day would break me, but I feel you here, in the way the wind moves through the trees, in the way the stars seem brighter tonight. I will sit in the garden later and watch the sunrise, just like we used to. I know you'd like that. He closed the diary and wrapped himself in his thick coat. The garden was blanketed with snow, the roses buried beneath, but not gone. They would bloom again come spring. Arthur breathed deeply, watching his breath fog in the air, and felt a strange peace. Later that week, Lily arrived unexpectedly with her husband and their 2 children. The house erupted with noise, children's laughter bouncing off the walls, tiny footsteps pattering across the wooden floor. For a moment, Arthur just stood in the doorway, overwhelmed. Dad! Lily called, pulling him into a hug. I thought you'd like some company. Arthur's heart swelled. The house felt alive again. That evening after dinner, he brought out Margaret's diary. The children sat cross-legged on the rug, curious, as Arthur read aloud a light-hearted entry where Margaret had described baking cookies with a much younger Lily. She spilled flour all over the kitchen and then tried to clean it with water. We laughed so hard we forgot about the mess. Lily's face turned red. Mum wrote about that? Arthur chuckled. She wrote about everything. The children begged for more stories, and Arthur read until their eyelids drooped. After tucking them into bed, Lily sat beside her father. You know, she said softly, a mum would be so proud of you. You've kept her alive for all of us. Arthur's eyes filled with tears, but he smiled. She's the one who made it possible. I'm just following her words. As the months passed, Arthur became more involved in the community. He began volunteering at the local library every Friday, reading stories to children. At first, he simply enjoyed being around the books, but he quickly became the favorite of the children's group. They loved his soft, kind voice and the way he brought characters to life. One day, the librarian noticed the small, leather-bound diary he always carried with him. Arthur, she asked gently, is that your wife's? He nodded. It is. She wrote about everything. Our life, our love, even our mistakes. Arton. Reading it saved me. The librarian's eyes softened. You should think about sharing some of it, you know. People could learn a lot from words like that. The idea planted a seed in Arthur's mind. That night, he sat at the kitchen table with the diary open in front of him. Could he really share something so personal? But as he read Margaret's words again, words full of kindness, hope, and quiet wisdom, he felt certain she would have wanted her story to bring comfort to others. Slowly, he began copying passages into a notebook, adding his own reflections after each one. It became his new project, a way of turning grief into something meaningful. When Lily saw what he was working on, she offered to help. We could make it into a little book, Dad. Nothing fancy, just for family and friends. Maybe for Mum's anniversary this year. Arthur hesitated but finally agreed. Together, they spent evenings typing, editing, and laughing over Margaret's humor. The project became more than just a tribute. It was a bridge that connected father and daughter in a way they hadn't been in years. On the day the small batch of printed books arrived, Arthur held one close, running his fingers over the simple cover that read, For Maggie, A Life in Love and Word. They organized a small gathering at the library. Friends, neighbors, and even some of the children Arthur read to came. He stood at the front, diary in one hand, book in the other, and read one of Margaret's favorite entries. A love is not in grand gestures, but in the small, ordinary days. The way Arthur makes me tea when I am tired. The way we sit together in silence and feel safe. If this is all my life is, it is more than enough. When he finished, the room was quiet for a moment before a warm round of applause filled the air. Several people wiped away tears. Arthur smiled, not with sadness this time, but with pride. The weeks after the event, Arthur began to receive letters from people in town, telling him how Margaret's words had touched them. A widower wrote to say the book had given him hope to keep living. A young couple said they were inspired to start a diary of their own. Arthur realized then that Margaret's legacy was not just his to carry. It belonged to everyone she had touched. Spring returned, and the roses bloomed again, bright and full of life. One evening, Arthur sat in the garden, diary in his lap, listening to the soft buzz of bees. He wrote, My love, today the garden is full of color. Lily brought the children and they played until sunset. They asked me to tell them more about you. I did. I told them everything. Your laughter, your kindness, your stubborn streak when it came to overwatering the roses. They know you now, Maggie. Truly know you. You are alive in them. As the years passed, Arthur's hair grew whiter, his steps slower, but his heart stayed light. The diary grew thick with his own entries, a conversation that never truly ended. One summer night, long after Lily and her family had gone home, Arthur sat beneath the stars. He held the diary to his chest, closed his eyes and whispered, "I'm ready whenever you are, Maggie, but until then I'll keep writing." The stars shimmered overhead, and for a moment Arthur could almost feel a hand on his shoulder, warm and gentle. He smiled, tears glistening in the moonlight. The man who once cried alone in a dark house now felt surrounded by love, by memory, by a presence that never left. And so he kept writing, not just for Margaret, but for himself, for Lily, for the grandchildren who would one day read his words and know the love story that built the family they belonged to. Arthur had learned that grief does not end, but it transforms, and when it is shared, it becomes something beautiful.